Welcome to the DevReady Podcast. Joining me on the DevReady Podcast today, I have Britt Fox. Thanks for joining me, Britt.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on, because I know nothing about you. And for those listening in for the first time, we're meeting Britt for the first time. We had a couple minutes intro just before, but I'll let you take it away and explain who you are and what you do.
Well, you know my name, Britt Fox. So I am a founder, non-technical, but have been in consulting and on the implementation side of lots of different tech. So I do feel like I can get deep into the weeds. I'm building from many, many years of experience in consulting and being on the marketing side, a platform called Nevam, which is essentially giving businesses the opportunity and enablement to see their entire customer experience live at any time and then operationalize it. So think of it as living journey maps.
Okay, so it's an interesting way to approach the business and the customer experience. So we're in the tech rollouts and the things you learned. You mentioned before that you were with Deloitte. What are some of the things you picked up over that journey, or some of the big wins or failures that you might have seen?
Well, I found often that a different problem would occur, but the solution could be solved the same way. And that basically was summarized as visibility. So often organizations, the bigger they get, the harder it is to get visibility on what each team is doing and then connect and get collaborative, because everyone starts to get into their business as usual, they're KPI driven, and then it's very hard to pull themselves out of the weeds. And if they want to do anything change, it disrupts business as usual. And so there's this friction point. And I found that if I could give each one of these teams visibility on what each one of them were doing, suddenly they could make better decisions. And so, like yourself, working through customer experiences or digital transformations or digital marketing strategies, often as a consultant, you go in and you go, okay, well, let's audit the customer experience, or let's audit the tech, or it starts with an audit basically, because you need to get up to scratch and
Yep.
understand what is going on so that then you can build recommendations. And if we could fast track that, businesses could make decisions faster, or they could do them themselves. So I really work to enable businesses to self-audit and know exactly what they need so they can go to consultants more efficiently, and it's a less biased and more visible, transparent process.
And it's key to have the right information in front of you. Otherwise, as a business, you're either making blind decisions and they're going to take you away from your strategy. And that's what it all comes down to. It's having a strategy in place. I know there's a lot of businesses that don't like when consultants come in because of the audit. It's like, why do I have to pay you to understand what we're doing? But that's why you're bringing someone in. Like, they're not going to be able to apply their knowledge unless they understand the situation.
100%. And also, that audit has biases behind it on the capability and understanding of the consultant.
Yep.
So, a consultant may just naturally want to solve it in the way that they've done it before with the tools that they've done it before, which can then lead your entire business down a path of, basically you could bring in any consultant and you'll get four different recommendations.
Oh, for sure.
you know but if a business can audit, understand exactly what their problem is, and they can go back and go, we think this is the problem, we need your help solutioning it, then suddenly they're going to be a little bit more enabled to have that decision.
Yep. And then they can make a decision that aligns to the current tools they may have in place, with some either change management along staff or processes outside of the software, because bringing in a new piece of software into an organization is a difficult task, especially when you're at a large size. So like with Deloitte, you would have been working with very large clients, and
Yeah.
then you're not affecting one person in the admin team 20 minutes a day. You may be doing that across hundreds or thousands of people, and that really adds up.
Yeah, and even often what we would find is a tech got implemented, but it basically, the scope was so narrow based on costs that most of the costs and budget got fed out based on the audit, the discovery, and implementing what already existed before they could get to the new and shiny things. And then they always skimp out on training. and onboarding and holding their hands afterwards. So that is a very simple misfire on so many businesses that I see, is not understanding how Agile works, not understanding how the scope is never done. It's not like, I think that's also one big thing that I find a lot of founders making a mistake on, is going to a dev team and doing a fixed scope. Your tech is never done. You're
No.
always going to be optimizing it. So you need to factor that in and think through that as you build. And that goes to even massive companies, and investing in the training of your teams is going to enable you to utilize that tech to its base, like most capacity. So often we would see these, I always would say, like, you had a Honda marketing tech stack or something like that. You wanted the Ferrari, but you basically lifted and shifted that Honda engine into a Ferrari motor. You still have a Honda.
Yep.
Basically with a nice shiny wrapper, but you're paying the Ferrari price, but the mechanics behind it are still a Honda. And then you've got everyone who's been brought onto the platform still only trained on the Honda mechanic, and they haven't learned all the cool things that a Ferrari can do. And so then they can't implement the new stuff.
It's
And then a new consultant comes in and goes, oh, this was implemented terribly. I think you need a new tech stack. And
Start
then
again.
it goes through this cycle over and over again every 5 years.
it's a very interesting process, especially at the large organizations, because so much of it drives the value that they deliver. On a smaller one, there's a lot more probably workarounds and manual things that are done. If the software doesn't work 100%, they're happy to just continue going with, all right, we'll do this part in the tool, and then someone will copy that and paste it into this other thing and work that way. But when you're doing it at a really large organization, you can't afford to have that. And I think from my experience and what we've seen, a lot of the friction comes in when it's like a CRM or a sales tool.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're on HubSpot and you bring in a Salesforce consultant, obviously you've got the wrong platform and now you have to go to Salesforce.
Yeah.
And then you bring in the HubSpot guy back and you're on Salesforce now. That's obviously the problem. You've got to go back to this one. And there's a lot of time in not just the training, but it's the change management of and the migration of data and making processes then match. So like you said, the budget gets spent on same for same, but not to improve.
Yeah. And so often what I would go in is go, okay, hold on real quick. Let's audit what you have. Let's find all the things that we can do to uplift what you're going to bring in, and let's design what the blue sky is, and let's work between the two. So Nevam is really that vision of, let's constantly audit what you currently have in market so that you can micro optimize, but then that also can help you design what you want the blue sky to be and build out the business cases so that you can implement that new MarTech tool, and you know exactly how it's going to plug in, you know exactly where you're going to tag, you know exactly where you need to get the data sources, and then you can also like work that right into each of the development team's Jira boards, and you can have visibility so that those businesses are utilizing its tech to its full capacity. And then when they realize, okay, we really have pushed this to its extent, now we're ready to upgrade.
And that is the important step. It's having that baseline understanding. So when you do upgrade, you're upgrading for the value that you will actually get out of the product, not that the budget is limited and we can't actually get to that next step, which always happens so we build software. So we see a lot of that coming in when we're understanding processes and tools. It's, all right, you need new software, but then there's a fixed budget. All right, we're going to do so much with that budget. Once you get that deployed, then they always want to go to the next step. But it's like, I don't know if it's the risk aversion or just being cautious. They don't want to commit to it yet until it's done. And then like, all right, now it's done. It's not doing what we needed to do. Now let's go to the next step.
Yeah. And it's so hard to change the way you think, to go from, let's just get MVP done and then we'll go to the next phase, and people go like, what are your milestones? Like, well, I work Agile, so I can be flexible. I move everything around and I work in 3 speeds. I work as business as usual is the main part of every sprint. And then I'm always putting in regression testing and optimizations as the second part of so optimizations and bugs. So then that way I'm continuously uplifting what I've already released and fixing any issues whilst also releasing new features.
Yeah.
And I'm not needing to constantly go into this prioritization matrix where we're going to spend an entire sprint on bugs. It's is this important?
Yeah.
And if it is, then it gets immediately fixed. That shouldn't disrupt the customer.
No, it should not, because any change you do can affect them if they're the end users of it or your team are using that to support the customers. I think a lot of the problem comes down to probably the understanding of Agile with businesses. So
So
like,
yeah.
I'm probably
And if
speaking
you're
your
not a
language now.
technical, if you've never worked in that and you've never worked in tech, it's very hard to bring up. And I talk to a lot of founders, and I go, yep, I use Confluence, Jira, I work in sprints, and it's like, whoa. And then I go, wow, I didn't realize what an advantage I had by
Yeah.
having that in my career.
I think even just the Agile approach, if you're going to build like a large piece of software, you don't like, if you're going down the MVP route, you don't want to be Agile. You know what you need to build, get that out, get feedback, and then you can adjust. Because if you keep pivoting every couple of sprints and the software's not even out, you're pivoting for no reason yet.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of things that businesses are saying, oh, you're Agile. That means you can just do whatever we want whenever we want. No, there still has to be a strategy. There has to be something that you're following. And you've got to have a
Yes.
plan. We work in what we call a managed Agile. So we just made up our own term, which is
Yeah.
really flexible in the design because it doesn't cost much to change at that point.
Yeah.
Let's explore everything we need in our dev ready phase, get you planned. All right, we know what the scope's going to be. So we can do a fixed scope for that first bit of work because we know what you need to test. Go out and test it. Now let's be agile and add features as you get feedback. But people
Yeah.
don't understand that.
Yeah. And I don't want to say that I didn't know what I was doing. I definitely I knew what I needed to get done in my first MVP for it to be a minimum viable experience for the client. And then now it's like, okay, what's the most important thing that they are saying to me that they need? Let's design that. And so we basically, the way that we work is I've got a roadmap of the features based on assumptions, based on feedback. But if someone starts to go, this is like really hindering my experience, and we bring that forward, and my product owner and I will design the research and the activities and the things that need to get done, and then we hand it over to a designer and she designs the experience. We go through that process, and we're like basically 2 to 3 sprints ahead
Yep.
of the development sprint, and so I know what I'm going to be building in the next like probably month.
Yep.
But everything out by that is kind of like penciled in
Yeah, but
and researching.
that's a good approach to a completely agile process. Then you know what you're doing. You're planning your head. It's not you get to the point. All right, in this sprint, let's start designing what we need to design so you can implement, and then you're already a week behind. It's
Yeah.
having the plan and the strategy. I think
Yeah.
that's really key. It's the other thing that we sort of come out of that is when people say like, all right, this is my MVP. As a consultant, you present a budget and you go, oh, this is what it's going to cost. And now we've coined a new MMVP. So what's the most minimum valuable
Yeah.
product? Like what can you strip out of what you thought was the minimum to give you actually what you need? Now that's what you really need. And then having that roadmap, right, we can always go back to what you had in phase 2 and 3. Phase 3 may become phase half, like it might shift around. But having a plan and some strategy there will make all the difference.
Yeah.
So how did you get from Deloitte to Nevam and start that transition to just jump out on your own?
I laugh because it was repeatable process over and over again, feeling so much pain of so basically I had visualized this platform for over a decade of there's got to be a platform that visualizes everything. And when I was working in marketing for Orton Group and Gap, I saw Salesforce and I was going to the Salesforce meetings, and I thought that I was like, oh, they have Journey Mapper. It's going to be there. Everything's going to be there. Everything that I need to plan and see my entire campaign nationally is going to be there. I just don't have the tools. We're just so cheap. And then I get into Deloitte and I have access to all the best tools and I'm planning the best customer experiences, and it's still not easy to use and it's still not adoptive, and it's based on how many users get access, and it's so still skilled. And then it was almost separating skill sets even more so because now someone was specialized in Martech, and then someone was specializing in digital, and
Okay.
we started to see the separation even more in the last 6-7 years. And then it became so much more of now I've got to go talk to each one of these team members about their part of the customer experience. And it basically was delivering all sorts of work, but using the same process where it was like audit, give the list of things,
The recommendations.
manage how they're going to become more customer centric, or experimentation framework, or whatever you want to call it. And I was sitting on maternity leave in March 2023, and I was like, I can't go back.
You've had enough.
I just couldn't go back, and I just was like, well, I've got a year to think about this. And so I just started going to startup events and researching. I started asking all my friends, clients, anybody I could about, is this actually a problem or is this just a problem to me? And then I started to design it out and prototype, and it got to the point where it was like time to go back. And I made the lunge and was like, okay, well, I can do consulting to start, and I'll just start delivering this like I was consulting and perfecting the tool. And then I pitched the idea to Techstars and got in. And so then I went from like idea to, okay, cool, like now we can start this. And then in that kind of same week, we landed our first paid pilot with like one of the largest retailers in Australia. And it was like, okay, now I've got this idea. Now I'm in Techstars. I've got the backing. I've got people around me. I've got mentors. And now I've got a client. I got to go.
That's it.
I got to
Go
start
time.
now. And so one of my tech mentors came on as my advising CTO, and he gave me access to amazing developers. And we just started building, and we built the product to be in their hands within 12 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And they've been on it since January 8th. And it's just been growing and building every 2 weeks.
Yep. So January 8th this year.
Yeah.
So was that your launch, your public launch?
Yeah,
Oh,
January
wow.
8th.
Congratulations. The 12 weeks is a very short development time for those listening that aren't in the space.
Yes.
Yeah. So your approach there is what we would recommend to anyone going out about doing something. Explore the market, talk to people, and are you trying to solve a problem that's an actual problem that people care about, not something that's just like annoying you? Because that's not a product, that's not a market, that's just a utility or a tool that you need. But yeah, if you can build a business around the idea and actually get buy-in from people, you're going in the right direction. And then if you can land a client that says, yep, we definitely need something like this, and then, or if you're providing a service and you're using it to support them, then that's all the more case to actually go ahead and build it. What was it like going through Techstars?
Well, I went into Techstars with the assumption that I was going to be raising off this idea and the research that I had done. And very quickly, I was going now into build a tech team, go through procurement, onboard an enterprise client, facilitating workshops. And so I think my experience is probably different to some of the others, but I would say that didn't hinder me in having the most experience with getting some of the best mentors that I probably wouldn't have met just naturally. And they're all pretty much still in my business today, either as investors or as advising CTOs or supporting on my sales staff. So that was one amazing component, but also the camaraderie. So that particular Techstars cohort was, like 90% female, and I had felt as a mom of two that I wasn't finding a ton of people like me. And I think the voice has changed a bit, but it felt like there wasn't, no one was thinking that I was going to be able to do it as a mom.
Okay.
Maybe that was my own self-confidence thing.
It's probably, especially if it's a newborn, I can understand the potential reservations there, because looking after a baby, it is difficult. It's one of the most difficult things you can do. But if you're
always
driven,
just got the comment of, "Oh, you're in the thick of it." Like,
I think
I
you're always
am.
in the thick of it. It doesn't matter if you've got a baby or you're starting a business. You just got both of them at once.
Yeah. Maybe that could just tell you that I've got grit and tenacity. I don't know.
You're
But,
good at time management.
Yeah, I'm very efficient with my time management. But being in that cohort, there was so many successful, powerful women who had these like amazing careers or multiple companies, and a lot of them were moms, and so it was very cool. And a lot of the cohort were parents in general,
Yep.
so it was very cool to be around people who were looked and thought and
Yeah,
did
similar.
things like me and weren't necessarily. I never felt like I felt like the rhetoric was balance and making sure that you're going to build a successful company rather than killing yourself and working 20 hours a day but not necessarily being building it. Like, it was about
Yep.
foundation. So the the it was okay if people were ducking out at 3:30 to go pick up their kids. They could dial in later. They knew they were going to get it done,
Hmm.
whereas I think some other cultures can make you feel bad for that.
Yeah, I definitely think there is a like a stigma there on being an entrepreneur or a startup that it's 24/7 grind, never stop. But then yeah, that could be how we sort of interpret what we see in like the US market in Silicon Valley, where it's all about raising and trying to hit those numbers that you'll never hit, so you can just get to the next funding round, and eventually you cash out. But really,
Yeah.
it's like what you're saying there, advising is build a balanced business, because if you can build a business that can run on its own, you don't need investment. The investment will help you get something done faster, but if you can build a business that works on its own and can be sustainable, that's the ideal. That's what you really want. And you're not giving up a lot to get that.
Yeah. And I mean, if I'm going to be successful and I'm going to represent to my kids what a successful business looks like, I've got to be home at bedtime and show them that, like, you can balance it all. Whilst also, I think I'm working in enterprise. My customers are parents.
Yep.
So they're not, I just need to be efficient
Hmm.
and find where those opportunities are to do that. And my I resonate with customers because I am like them. I'm a
Yeah.
parent.
Oh, most enterprises, it's 5 o'clock, and if people finish work, they finish work.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
may think
which is
about it, but you
fantastic.
finish.
I never have to worry about getting a message during school holidays or on the weekends or anything, which means that that's my brain space time.
Yeah, yeah, you have the time to think and actually not be caught up in the day to day of the business as usual.
Mhm.
When you're working with a lot of startups or founders, you're on call because they're on call. You're always around.
Yeah.
So, what's been the most exciting part of building the product for you? Because it seems like the idea was there, but going through the process, or has something stood out that's like, all right, this is why you did it.
Two things. One is watching, like, I love my dev stand-ups and I love watching what they built and then being like, oh my god, it works, and doing my testing before deployment. I get so excited watching and seeing, like, real progress. My development team are awesome and they're excited
Hmm.
and they're invested, which is rare, I think, for a development team that isn't like my employees. So I love that. But the thing that has, like, stood out as one of probably, like, the most exciting moments to date has been, we got a client in Sweden,
Oh,
an
okay.
agency,
Yep.
and they came on as a client because they wanted to test this, to be a partner. So they wanted to test it on one of the largest energy suppliers in Sweden, and they invited me to a lunch and learn so that the main person who was using the tool could show what they had done for the client and to their agency and to their sister agency to prove that they wanted to bring this on within the whole agency as a partnership.
Hmm.
And watching someone else present Nevam and present it like they owned it, and then to do it in Swedish where I had to have Google Translate on, super cool.
That would be like a bit of a surreal moment, I guess, because they're talking about it like it's their baby, probably because they can deliver what they promised because it allows them to.
Yeah, and watching their whole entire agency start to have this conversation that I was trying to keep track of because Google Translate's trying to, like, catch up,
Yep.
and they're all going excited of, like, oh, we could do this and this and this, and I was like, oh my gosh, how cool. Like, they're all vibing it. I'm just like, I'm a guest while they all are talking about me like I'm not in the room. It was a very surreal moment.
It would be because Normally, when you're building software or building a product, you don't actually get that sort of feedback from customers or users, especially that like fly on the wall moment where you're seeing how they actually talk about it when you're not there effectively.
Yeah.
I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever had that yet. It's we're always present when someone's talking about it, or it's you just hear occasional feedback like, "All right, it's amazing, it's doing what it's supposed to do, and it's getting us to the next level." Like you get
Yeah.
that, but generally when things are going well, you don't hear about it.
Yeah, and like to have them be giving all the reasons why they liked it versus I mean, this agency is like a MarTech consulting agency, and they usually audit journeys in
Hmm.
MarTech tools, and then it's very hard to do it in Miro, and then it goes into a spreadsheet and it becomes this list of things, and then it goes into a Word document and a PowerPoint to present back, and then the execs of that business always struggle to see the report and go, okay, but where does that tie to in the experience? What do I actually need to like do?
Yep.
And so they said that this was just like, I could show them all the interviews, the feedback, the things in the canvas. Then all the activities that we recommend were backlog tickets attached to the thing, which then
So I could
created
just see it all.
the scope. So then now they've got their scope built for the next year
Oh
in
well.
the tool.
And then that
Yeah.
having that visibility and that connection. So again, presenting the right data, aligning to their strategy, and letting them make the right decisions is what it all comes down to. So
Yeah.
how have you found actually working with a dev team and trying to then translate like your requirements or your vision so they do buy in like they have.
I think development teams inherently end up fixing they end up working in tools they already know
Hmm.
and going along a process of connect this data source and create this journey flow. And I mean, if you work in a Salesforce or any of these, like, it's not that customizable. You know what your limitations are.
Yeah.
Where what we're building is custom, and if there's a problem, it's find a solution. And and I'm not freaking out about bugs, and they know I know what they're talking about, and I can make technical decisions, and they can go technical with me, and I can help them through that. And I'm giving them a little bit of free reign to solution and come up with options where I'm not dictating it has to be done this way. And we're skipping the point where we go, okay, if we do this, that's going to be a scope creep. It's like, there is no scope creep here.
Yep.
You're contracted for until I tell you you're not contracted. So if it's bigger, you just need to tell me, and I will
Yep.
make the priority. I will make the decision on what I think needs to come out, and they don't need to have those awkward conversations. They point things. I know how many points they can get done,
Hmm.
and we can see pretty closely as we get closer to the end of the sprint what tickets they're not going to get to, and I prioritize every
Yep.
single thing. So it's pretty easy for them to make decisions like I'm making it for them.
That's a unique position to be in as a developer because normally there's a lot of awkward conversations you have to have, especially around that estimates. Oh, something's bigger than we thought it was. It's very hard to estimate things accurately.
Yeah, and I've been a scrum master and a project manager on large digital transformations, so my scrum master has it pretty easy.
Yep.
I can just he can just like prompt me something that I need to remember to do, and I can go do it. I can write test scripts.
Yep.
I can write my acceptance criteria, and my designer is ex Deloitte as well, so we work quite in sync. She knows that based on the acceptance criteria I've set, we go through, she makes a Figma prototype for every major epic,
Yep.
and then the user stories are put through that, which I approve. And any deviations from that are decisions that are tracked in the tool. So
Yep.
I think that I might be easy compared
Definitely,
to,
you're doing half the work for them almost. You're
yeah,
you're you're a like a product owner, effectively, not
yeah,
just a client. So you're running the
yeah,
product and designing direction and helping the team. So it's a unique position, and that's I can understand now why a 12-week build happened. Because generally that audit period will eat up 4 weeks, 5, 6 weeks. Could be longer depending on how they operate and how fast it is. But that is now it's clear why you could get to that point because you're very clear. You understand what you want. You know how to work with them, which is probably one of the biggest things a lot of startup founders they've never been in the space before, so they don't know how to work with dev teams or what they need to know to support them. They just wait on getting information back, and then if you don't find the right team, you're not going to get the right questions back or the right prompts.
Yeah, and also I'd say that I I had a way that I wanted things to work, so I knew what columns I wanted tickets to move through and how I wanted visibility and where I wanted them to talk to me when they had problems so that I set it up for them. Like I was very clear. Yeah. I was very clear and I give them plenty of notice when these are my testing windows, you need to hit these windows or we're not going to make it to this time. So yeah, we're probably able to move faster, and we work through all the agile rituals. So we have a retro once a month where we talk about those things. We have sprint planning and grooming fortnightly, rotating, and we have stand up every day.
Yep. And yeah, you're hitting all the right boxes to keep the team accountable, keep them invested, and that's why they bought in and understand how to work with you to be able to deliver at that velocity. So what's next for Nevam and coming up in the next few months or 6 months, and what are you looking forward to?
Well, we just launched our integration with Jira, which was a massive thing, and also we launched our web crawler, so now we can pull all the website pages from the web. And then next we're integrating with social, and we're building for self-serve. So we're basically solutioning it and wireframing it and designing it right now, and then building the go-to-market plan, all the life cycle journeys and things like that, so that can just go in its nice hum, whilst we're also onboarding some new clients and then need to factor in their email platforms and what they want to have integrated. And so we're just balancing that. So I'm just excited that we are getting into enterprises conversations. We're starting to get noticed, and we have investors who have started making commitments, and now it's just like get the team going and start scaling, hopefully.
Yeah, kicking some of those goals to just tick the right boxes, get those investors in, and then everything can just ramp up.
Yeah, so I'm excited to ramp.
It's a very exciting period. You're just at the top of that, just before the crest happens and ready to take off. So it's exciting to hear that. Well, Britt, it's been a pleasure to learn about yourself and Nevam today. If anyone wants to find out more about Nevam and what you do and how you work and how you can help, where can they do that?
You can find Nevam on LinkedIn, or you can connect with me, Brittany Fox, on LinkedIn as well. I've got a Substack, CX with Brit, if you want some top tips on customer experience. We talked a lot about development today, but yeah, CX is more my sweet spot.
It sounds like you've got enough knowledge in both from the sound of it.
Yeah, and those are the main places.
Cool. All right. Well, once again, we'll put all that into the show notes. Thank you for joining me on an episode of DevReady Podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.